Philadelphia, Joe Kadlec was among the first hires by the Flyers in August 1967 as their public relations man. So, who better to show me around the director's lounge between periods at the Wells Fargo Center during the LEAFS visit, he and wife Joan inviting me in to talk about the Toronto-Philadelphia Wars. When Joe started, the LEAFS were still Stanley Cup champs. Doug Favell, who played goal for both teams, arranged for us to meet and Joe was eager to hear all about my journey to date. Joe tried to stump me with a few trivia questions, such as how many such as Favell played for both LEAFS and Flyers. I guessed 30 and wasn't far off at 38. Another was how many home games did the Flyers play in Toronto? 1. Actually, the year the roof blew off the old Spectrum, which was located across the lot from Wells Fargo. Another Toronto connection goes back even further. A Canadian, Dr. George W. Wharton, was a track star for the University of Pennsylvania between 1892 to 1903, winning many national championships. It was he who pushed for the iconic Army-Navy football game to be permanently played in Philly as it was equidistant to the two service academies. Wharton is also credited for introducing hockey to this region. It became such a draw that the struggling Toronto St. Patrick's were headed here in 1927 before Conn Smythe and friends stepped in to buy the team first. Sportscaster Mark Habisher has penned a book on the amazing Wharton, the greatest athlete you've never heard of. When my lift first passed the sports complex, home to the Flyers, 76ers, Eagles and Phillies, I found myself humming the sounds of Philadelphia, the instrumental radio hit by the mischievously named MFSB, which came out around the time of the first Rocky movie and the Flyers' first cup. Mike Wilson with the Rocky statue in Philadelphia. But the musical pièce de résistance was Kate Smith's God Bless America, first played in a game against the Leafs on deck. 11, 1969. If you can believe, owner Ed Snyder didn't like it, but the Flyers won, the fans loved it and people started taking note of Smith's recording having a winning record for the team versus the Star-Spangled Banner. After lots of squabbling, it stuck. This was hardly my first time in the city of brotherly love, having attended many games and watching friends who played for the Flyers. But I'd usually stayed in the suburbs and this Leaf trip involved seeking out some of the rich history the city has to offer. After checking into my hotel, a busy agenda included the Liberty Bell, Independence Hall, Benjamin Franklin's home and of course running up the 72 Rocky steps, well, at a slow jog at the Museum of Art along with seeing Stallone's monument. I walked to the Class of 1923 arena, located on the grounds of Wharton's University that also served as the Flyers' first practice rink from '69 until the mid-'70s. It was the starting point for one of the Cup parades. Adjacent is Franklin Field, built in 1895 and the oldest stadium still in use in America. It housed the nation's first scoreboard, first football radio and TV broadcasts, and was host to 18 Army-Navy games up to 1935. The Leafs game day skate served as a good way to familiarize myself with the subway system to and from Wells Fargo. I caught up with high school pals Larry and Marianne Kelly, whom I saw at the Las Vegas game last month, joined by daughter April. April's Flyer-loving husband, Adam Chessie, concedes their imminent first child will be christened a Leaf fan, but hopes he or she will adopt the Phillies in summer. Adam was about to attend his 18th season opener the next day. Mike Wilson with Richard Storto, Joe D'Amico, Ray Nicolini, Rob Parida, and John Petrocelli in Philly. Back in early February in Montreal, I'd met Richard Storto, who invited me to his private box when I made it here. We had an earlier-than-planned reunion when he ended up on the same flight here. Buddies Joe D'Amico, Ray Nicolini, Rob Parida, and John Petrocelli were also on the plane, having been told by our mutual friend, John Rochetta, to look me up at the game, so we all had a head start on festivities. It's moments like this, connecting with fellow Canadians, sharing a similar passion, that makes everything I'm doing that much more meaningful. Another Philly native I hooked up with was Zach, who spent many childhood summers vacationing in the Toronto area and fell in love with everything about it, including St. Lawrence Market. He still gets north a few times a year for the mandatory market breakfast sandwich. Zach thinks it was destiny he'd follow the Leafs after Joe Carter hit the series-winning homer against the Phillies in 1993, the day Zach was married. A year later, while visiting Niagara Falls with his wife, she offered, on a whim, to go with him to the Leafs playoff game that night in Toronto against the Flyers. Zach jumped in the car before she could change her mind. They bought tickets on the street and watched Peters Eszil win the game in OT. Zach underlines all that Toronto karma with his personal Ontario license plate. Leafs say Mike Wilson has been to all 82 Leaf games this season, home and away, as part of the ultimate road trip, and is now on the playoff trail against Boston. Read more in The Sun at ultimateleafsfan.com and on Instagram at @theultimateleafsfan. Let's block ads. Why?